you have to be super clear about what kind of company you're trying to build, what your approach is.
As much as we want to think that we know exactly what our mission in life is and what our chosen profession is going to be at 22, hell no.
In my 20s, I didn't get to read much at all.
Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business.
Living that believing life. Out here living that believing life. Every day we living that believing life. Hustle like we living that believing life. Living life, yeah, so we grinding it out. Every single day we be grinding it out. Hustle like we living that believing life, oh. That believing life, oh.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You have Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best believed life and learn how billionaires think and get some success advice from the top. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Don't just follow the trends with Elon Musk.
Don't just follow the trend. So you may have heard me say that it's good to think in terms of the physics approach of first principles, which is rather than reasoning by analogy, you boil things down to the most fundamental truths you can imagine and you reason up from there. And this is a good way to figure out if something really makes sense or if it's just what everybody else is doing. It's hard to think that way. You can't think that way about everything. It takes a lot of effort. But if you're trying to do something new, it's the best way to think. And that framework was developed by physicists to figure out counterintuitive things like quantum mechanics. So it's really a powerful method.
Rule number 2, read with Bill Gates.
The nice thing now that I'm not so extreme, in my 20s, I didn't get to read much at all.
Yeah.
And so like all this stuff is going on in biology and math. I just didn't get to read it. Then when I did get into my 30s, those vacations were a time to go back because when I was a student, you could study all sorts of things. Anyway, now, I read a lot of science, and that uses up, maybe half of the slots that I have. Really understanding U.S. poverty and what's going on there. There's a few dozen books that try and give you a glimpse of that are very good. This book, Factfulness, let me say, it definitely creates a framing for what's going on in the world. And the other one that's right up there is any Pinker book, starting with Better Angels of Our Nature.
Rule number 3, do what you love with Oprah Winfrey.
The way to make movies is to do stuff that you love because, for 25 years I worked on the Oprah show, and Stedman will tell you that there were nights that I came home and I almost, it was hard to even take off my clothes because I knew I was going to be getting up 4 hours later. But I never really felt exhausted. I felt exhausted, but I never felt depleted. So do the work that comes straight from the soul of you, from your background, from stories that you've grown up with, from stories that bring you passion, from stories that you not just yearn to tell, but that if you don't tell them, they won't get told. And when you are operating, the single greatest wisdom I think I've ever received, other than when people show you who they are, is that the key to fulfillment, success, happiness, contentment in life is when you align your personality with what your soul actually came to do. I believe everybody has a soul and has, their own personal spiritual energy. So when you can use your personality to serve whatever that thing is, you can't help but be successful. So if you do films that come from the interior of your soul, you do work, you do art that comes from the interior of you, you cannot miss. It's only when you're doing stuff that you think might make money, you think it may be a a hit, or you think it may bring you some level of attention or success. That isn't what does it. I would have to say that all of the great, wonderful experiences of my life that have brought me to this moment have come from working from the interior of myself. And so that's why it feels so authentic, because it actually is. So when you do that, you'll win.
Also, if you want to build more confidence, the science says it can take up to 254 days of consecutive action to successfully build a habit. So I've created a free program for you where every day for 254 days, I will send you an unlisted video to your email, absolutely free, to help you build your confidence. The link to join is in the description below.
That ended up being worse than if we had designed a car from the beginning.
To figure out where your power base is.
I took my Amazon lottery winnings and built the heavy lifting infrastructure that does take billions of dollars in CapEx to lower the cost of access to space.
Rule number 4, be clear about what you want with Jeff Bezos.
Warren Buffett has this great quote. He says, you can hold a rock concert, and that's okay. And you can hold a ballet, and that's okay. Just don't hold a rock concert and advertise it as a ballet. Investors come in all shapes and sizes. They have different investment horizons, different approaches, different beliefs about what the right kind of portfolio looks like. And so it's not one, people use Wall Street as a shorthand, but there isn't one type of investor. They come in all shapes and sizes. And you have to be super clear about what kind of company you're trying to build, what your approach is. We laid that out in our 1997 annual shareholder letter. We said we were going to take big bets. We said they were going to fail. We said some of them hopefully were going to work. We said we were going to invest for the long term, that we were going to try to take advantage of market opportunities as they arose. And there's a certain kind of investor who is aligned with that approach. And so, again, you can hold the ballet or the rock concert, and both can work. Just be clear about which one you are, and then people can self-select.
Rule number 5, serve the customers with Jack Ma.
And I think one of the things I want to share with the values, the 6 values, among the 2 values, very unique in Alibaba, which I think the whole world should think about. We put customer number 1, employee number 2, shareholder number 3. Most companies in the Wall Street, they put the shareholder number 1. I said, customer is the most important. If you serve them well, they pay you the money. And the second important is colleagues. Why the colleagues get together? Because they want to serve the customers. If they do not serve the customers, why we get together? Right? So if the customer happy, employees happy, the shareholders will be happy.
Rule number 6, recognize your mistakes with Warren Buffett.
One of the things you do in your annual report, which has become a classic, is you will discuss what went wrong, like Dexter, and what you learned, and what you learned from it.
Sure.
Tough to do.
Well, it's very important to recognize mistakes. I mean, if somebody goes around and says, I never made a mistake, I mean, you quit listening to them. I mean, they're in a dream world. So, so facing up to it, it's a little like in terms of discussing issues. You should be able to discuss the other fellow's position just as well as you can discuss your own. So, I mean, that's part of thinking well, and certainly part of making good decisions in business is recognizing the poor decisions you've made and why they were poor, and that doesn't mean you never do the same thing. I mean, because sometimes it was a freak situation, but I have made lots of mistakes. I'm going to make more mistakes, but Babe Ruth struck out a lot of times. I mean, it's the name of the game that you do it. You don't want to expect perfection in yourself. You want to strive to do your best, but it's too demanding to expect perfection in yourself. And it does some good to recognize them and not start trying to go around kidding people about them.
And rule number 7, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is don't look for the perfect job with Mark Cuban.
Now let's pretend that you're just about to graduate from college.
Right.
What's the advice?
You don't need the perfect job. Part of the problem is you probably have $100,000 of debt, right? And you got to pay off for all that shit. And that's really f***ed up. It's hurt the economy. It hurts everybody. But my advice, general advice, is assuming there's not just the bills you got to pay that are just enormous, is you paid all that money to learn.
Now, here's your chance to get paid to learn. And you don't need the perfect job. You need to get a job where you can make some money, but also where you can learn and add it to your portfolio of knowledge, add it to your foundation, because as much as we want to think that we know exactly what our mission in life is and what our chosen profession is going to be at 22, hell no. There's just no chance that the 30-year-old or even the 25-year-old is going to look back at the 21 or 22-year-old you and say, oh, that dude had it all together, knew exactly what was up, right? He's going to look back and go, beer pong, what were you thinking, you know? And so don't expect to have all the answers, and don't try to get the perfect job. Go out there and get paid to have different experiences, and it's okay to jump from job to job if it's not the right job. You are getting paid to learn. Flip it, and then use that to build your knowledge and learn more about yourself, learn how to learn in business, and see where it can take you.
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video, and what is your plan of action that you're going to execute this week to make some immediate momentum happen? When you just get motivated and watch a video, you have a 35% chance of following through. That's what the science says. But when you write down what time, what day, what place you're actually going to execute, when you create the plan, you have a 91% chance of following through. And I want that for you. And when you commit to people publicly, you increase your chances even more of actually doing it. So I want to know what your single biggest takeaway from this video was, and your specific plan of action to actually get the result you're after. Let me know. Put it down in the comments below, because I want to celebrate you.
When you're down and out, first thing people do is blame it on everybody else but themselves.
So true.
When you start taking responsibility, you have a little different outlook. You also have the responsibility of turning things around. When I started Paul Mitchell, I was homeless once again, totally by accident. And I started the company out of the backseat of my car.
How old were you at that time, 37 or something?
That was 34, 35 at that time.
So you were homeless at 34, 35 again? Yeah. And what was this series of events that led to that second time?
It was just that we had money set up, $500,000. Mm-hmm. We needed to start the company with that kind of money. And the day I was ready to start, go down to the bank and get the money, my partner, the hairdresser, Paul Mitchell, flew over from Hawaii with his girlfriend, and we were ready to get the money and get going and get started. I'd left everything I did. My relationship wasn't working out, so I left the house, plenty of money for many months with her, had a few $100 in my pocket. Took the used car, which is 20 years old, but a decent one, okay, down the hill to get the money.
Wow.
I was going to check into an efficiency. I had all set up. The money never came in.
No way.
Never. The guy changed his mind. 1980, 81.
Yeah.
Inflation in the United States is 12.5%. Interest rates, if you could get a loan, prime rate, 17%.
Wow.
We stayed in line to get gasoline. And interest and unemployment was 10.5% in the United States. The guy said, your hostages are still in Iran, which they were at that time. He says, is this a terrible? I'm sorry, it's the last minute. No. So it's a matter of, what are we going to do?
If you want to change your life in the next 30 days for free, check out my training right here below. Or if you want 7 more awesome lessons from billionaires, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy them. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.